Amen. All right, so there's a lot going on. Just remember, 2 services next Sunday. Don't show up at 10 or you'll just be stuck in the middle. You don't want to be in no man's land, okay? That's the wilderness, all right, 10 a.m. It's over, all right? So the 9-11, that's the promised land. That's where we're going, okay? All right, well, guys, good morning, good morning. My name's Tyler Hardy. I'm the senior pastor here at Antioch, and today we're doing something a little differently. I'm actually going to have a conversation with myself, just back and forth. Just kidding. We're not doing that. No. This morning, we're doing something a little unique here at Antioch, and we are going to do, I'm going to do a little interview here with Chris and Arlina Pletcher. If you don't, before they came up, yep. So they'll share more, but we're bringing them up here because if you don't know, Chris and I became buddies in college on the way to fish camp. All right, so don't always, hey, listen, I know Impact Camp's great too, but fish camp, hey, good things can happen, all right? So we met back in college, and anyway, he's been friends for years, and we ended up back here in College Station, and Chris came on our staff several years ago, has stepped into being an elder the last few years, been helping to run Sundays and our family zone and a myriad of things, and so we wanted to bring them up here this morning because they just got back from a sabbatical for 5 weeks, which was hugely needed and so helpful. And we just wanted to have them up and kind of share some of their story and what God's been speaking to them, kind of how that time was as well, and to kind of share a few just kind of life lessons with us this morning, all right? So if you would, honor the Pletchers. Come on up here, guys. I think that's a bigger round of applause than you ever got preaching. So it's probably because of Arlina. That's right. That's the way it goes. That's okay.
The better
all right.
Gets a louder applause.
Here's
sure.
waters you want it, or they can just look cool right here. So it's up to you. I requested coffee. So
thanks.
All right. Well, so guys, Chris just kind of gave a little intro, but just kind of bring us a little bit into the story the last few months, maybe kind of taking us into 2020, the year of the unexpected. Maybe we could label it that. But just kind of bring us back in the last few months, kind of some of that story of what God's been speaking to you guys. So.
Yeah. Hey, say hi, Arlene.
Hi.
Good morning. I just hit your tooth. It's our first time. What's up, y'all? Hey, how's it going? It's good to, man, it's so good just to be here with the family this morning. Just unbelievable. Like, this worship team just leading us in with abandonment to worship Jesus. I mean, what an incredible privilege it is to get to be in this room today together in the flesh, praise God. So y'all know this still isn't happening in a lot of places, right? So anyways, y'all, it's been a really, it's been a lot of things. The last few months, the Lord has been speaking a lot to us and our family and has been initiating with us. As Tyler shared, we've been a part of the Antioch family for here in College Station for about 9 years, and it has transformed our walk with Jesus and changed our lives. And one of the things that we've loved so much about this community from day one is just seeing the radical surrender to Jesus that is just at the heartbeat of this church. You know, like you can't really come here and like stay lukewarm. You know, you're either going to come here and you're going to like hate it and leave, or you're going to come here and respond to the call to more, and you're going to surrender all to Jesus. You know, like there's just not a lot of gray area in at this church, and we needed that. We longed for that, and as we came in, we were so drawn to this radical surrender to Jesus. And every year at World Mandate, we'd show up, and kind of put ourselves before the Lord again and say, "Here we are, God. Wherever, if there's anywhere you want us to go or anything you want us to do, you have our yes." And year after year after year, it was stay here, go deep. Stay here, go deep. Year after year, I've called you to stay. I've called you to build this house. And over the last couple of months, leading into our sabbatical, we started to hear a little bit of a different invitation from the Lord. We started to hear him say, go. And so we're here this morning to share a little bit about the adventure that Jesus has invited our family into, and that got really clear and happened really quickly, honestly, over our sabbatical. We'll share a little bit more of the story, but we haven't just been chilling. I'll just say that much, okay? We've been pressing in and trying to hear the Lord, but that's kind of what we're here to share a little bit of the journey this morning.
Yeah, so, obviously they've been around here for a while, and, when it comes to a go, you guys, whether it's world mandate or just normal language, we want to be a church to actually train and send people and to train and go. And more recently we said, hey, we need to also do the training and staying thing too, because that also has value, right?
Sorry, bro.
But really in our heart of hearts, Jesus said in Matthew 28, the Great Commission, which many of us know, it is go therefore and make disciples in all the nations. And there is this going that is part of the believer's life. It's part of the call of a follower of Christ. And you may not know where that is. It doesn't always have to mean you to leave cities, but I think in this case, let's share more, but just, bring us a little bit into that story. Okay, you just said we just felt stirred to go. You got to unpack that a little more and just tell us, hey,
sure.
So how did you get up to this go part of actually, okay, what is when do you feel confident that you're supposed to go?
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else have a midlife crisis and shelter in place? Just okay. Let's see you, bro. All right. We've actually been calling it my midlife breakthrough. All right. So, as an extrovert, working from home was not my best life. Well, just to say the least. But it did create, shelter in place created some space for the first time, honestly, in years for me to really just have a lot of the stuff that was piled on top of me kind of removed and just some space. And in that space, there were some things that were just kind of deeply planted that had room to emerge, if you know what I'm saying. And just some calling. I just felt the Lord inviting, calling some things out of me and just saying, hey, there's some stuff in you that I need you to let emerge. I need you to be who I've created you to be. And honestly, we initially just thought that was going to mean a bit of a role change here. And Tyler and Ashley were so amazing. They could tell. I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve, I don't know if you saw me weeping up here from, the first downbeat of song 1 in worship, but I don't bury it very well. And so Tyler early on could see man, something's going on in you, and he was so kind. And just as, we've been friends for 20 years, we went out to lunch and he said, it's obvious God is doing something in you. I want you to press into that. I want to get behind that. And I want you to figure out what it is. And you have go and press in. And I had felt the Lord invite me into this 40 days of fasting from a couple things and just really seeking clarity. And Tyler said, look, I'm with you. Let's go. Let's get clarity. Let's hear what God is saying. And by the end of that 40 days, we just started honestly getting kind of bombarded. If you guys know, just living in the community, we have, such an amazing community of people that pray and people that hear God and then will actually share with you and encourage you. And so we just started kind of getting bombarded, honestly, with direction from the Lord, including, prophetic dreams and all kinds of stuff. I don't know if that's something, dreams are a part of your normal Christian life, but it's we got friends that dream, we got friends that hear the Lord clearly, and so it wasn't just this thing in isolation where we were we think we should leave, God was, by the end of that 40 days, really giving us a go. And it was like Abraham go. You guys know, Genesis 12, God comes to Abraham and he says, I want you to leave the land of your fathers and go to the land that I will show you, So it was we didn't have some city or some nation. It was just give me the yes in your heart and start moving, and I'll show you where we're going. And so that was fun, y'all. So we started to just give Jesus that yes in our hearts and say yes to that go, but we didn't really know what to do with it for a couple weeks, and we kind of wanted Tyler and Ashley to hear the same thing, without us saying it. And y'all, I just want y'all to know and say it publicly. It was such a beautiful just journey of unity and peace between the four of us and our two families as we've just shared so much of life together. And 2 weeks after we clearly heard the go, they came back from a family vacation at the beginning of the summer, and they said, we've been praying through things with the Lord, and we feel like it might be time for you guys to go. And I was like, well, good. I'm sure that was really hard for you to say to me, but good news, man. We're hearing the same thing. It would have been a little awkward if it, there wasn't that. But man, isn't that how the Lord works? Like God was just moving things and doing something. And anyway, that was the week before we left on sabbatical, which was legit. We were going to, we thought to just get a little bit of rest. And instead, we went into sabbatical to figure out, man, what in the world is the Lord saying? Where do we go?
Wow. Well, I think it's just helpful for you guys to hear just, God really is faithful when you press into him and you really do seek him out, right? The scriptures say, seek, knock, like he will be found, he will respond. He is a good father. And just to encourage you guys, so proud of y'all to actually do that seeking, knocking, even though you could have just been not doing anything during this shelter in place, just kind of chill and wait it out. But you guys really did press in, and I think that in that secret place of pressing in for months prepared you guys for what God was going to say at the end of that time, which is so beautiful and compassionate of God to let us go through the journey before he actually opens the door. So you share with us kind of some of that story, and you guys are going to go. But you're not sure where. So, Abraham wasn't sure either. God revealed it to him eventually, but just bring us into that a little bit. Okay, so where are we talking?
Yeah, for sure. So, you're probably expecting us to say, hey, we're going out to plant a new church, because usually that's sort of how how things normally happen, especially if you're, a 37-year-old with a family and you have a leadership crisis / breakthrough, it's like, awesome, man, go plant a church, and but we felt, and when I say we, us, the Hardys, a lot of you guys know James Wise, dear friend of mine. He was just like a trusted counsel in this inner journey as it was starting, and there just seemed to be this consensus that it wasn't a go to plant a new church, that there was going to be an opportunity for our family to jump in somewhere. Hopefully with the Antioch movement, we have no desire to leave this family, to jump in somewhere where there was some momentum and help take something to the next level, just be a part of leading and covering something. And so with that, we launched into sabbatical, and Tyler started making a couple of phone calls. I grew up in Houston, and so he called Fred Nelson, lead pastor in Antioch, Houston, and that kind of opened a conversation. And I had heard that in Austin, they were doing kind of a multi-campus model as well. And so he called Antioch Austin, and literally by the end of, before we even left, honestly, on sabbatical, we had phone calls with Houston and Austin, just kind of, exploring what does this yes mean for us. And Antioch, Houston, very quickly was, unfortunately for Houstonians, a quick closed door. All my family's there. They were sad about that. But Antioch, Austin was this wide open door right out of the gate that seemed really promising and surprisingly peaceful. Our first conversation with them was the first day of our sabbatical. 5 weeks later, on the last day of our sabbatical, they offered me a job to be campus pastor of their North Campus, and we've said yes. So that's the big, the big news is we've accepted a job with Antioch in Austin. We're going to be moving right down the road into the belly of the beast, the dark side. It's a good thing I'm surprised I didn't get any hissing, actually. Oh, God, saw him off, yeah. So it's a good thing I'm a 2%er. I love my T-SIP friends from a pure heart, but So, but kind of backing up a little bit, and I'll let Arlina share a bit here in a second, but it's one thing to have an open door, right? It's another thing for God to speak and say, go through that door. You know, an open door doesn't always mean that's where you're supposed to go. You know, God does close and open doors, but it's we really still have to be tuned into His voice. The door to Austin opened early in sabbatical, but again, we pressed in. We took some time away with our family to really hear what God was speaking, and it just came quickly and in abundance. The invitation to run to higher places. A word we've carried for a while is about being a city on a hill, and Austin is actually a city on a hill. It's the capital, obviously, and there were just a lot of different things where we didn't just feel like this was an open door. We felt like God started speaking to our family. I have called you to this city, and I've called you to be a part of what I'm doing in this city. And so, honestly, we I think Austin initially was just kind of entertaining a conversation with us, trying to, get to know us a little bit. And I'm not sure. We're in a global pandemic. Like, this North Campus in Austin isn't even meeting in person. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, they weren't on the job hunt. They weren't, like, looking for a campus pastor. But when Tyler called them, they just started listening to the Lord and started saying, God, is this something that you're doing? And a couple weeks later, we basically said, hey, we don't know how serious y'all are about this, but we feel like we're hearing from the Lord that some leadership for our family to Austin. So the ball's in your court if you want to continue the conversation. And they invited us to Austin the next week to, like, have some in-person interviews, and the rest was kind of history. So that's how that 5-week journey, I mean, it happened really fast and furious. Yeah.
It's awesome. Not your typical sabbatical, if you're wondering, what does that really look like for pastors? That's not typical. That's atypical. But God can always do whatever He wants. So, Arlina, obviously you're the more talkative of the two. No, just kidding. Just in case you wonder, Arlina, by request, did not want to talk the entire time. But when Arlina speaks, you need to listen. So Arlina, just help us understand a little bit from your perspective, your journey with this process, because I think we're all getting to hear y'all's story and communicating that y'all are going to be leaving soon and head to Austin. But again, I just want us to be picking up on just some of the life lesson pieces too of, like, how do you hear God about a big decision? I mean, more people have gone than have stayed at our church over the last 11 years. We prioritize college students. We go after people that are this is a stepping stone job journey, or they're just coming through. Like, this is very normal. So I think for our church to hear, this is a normal process people go through, whether it's ministry or the marketplace or graduate school, like, it's a normal thing. But I think to approach it in the way you guys are approaching it is really healthy, I think, for everyone to hear kind of, hey, we did pray and fast. Hey, we did seek some counsel. We did wait for unity of the Spirit. We did have open, honest conversations. We explored doors, some shut, some open. Like, that's really healthy for us to hear, and that it is a process. This one was a little quicker than maybe I would say that is normal, but it still was a process. Does it make sense? So, Arlina, just from your angle a little bit, kind of being in this journey and also just speaking on behalf of your kids, just let us know, how's this felt? What's this been like for you guys?
Yeah, I would love to. So the sweet thing about knowing Jesus is that you're in a journey day to day with Him, and He's just always speaking, and He's preparing you before you even know if you're going, where you're going, and so much of this journey, I feel like, was Him, kind of like we hear in the Old Testament when He's talking to the Israelites, like, remember what I've done, remember what I've said. And when you have history with God, just in the day-to-day faithfulness of spending time with Him and praying and seeking and finding, and you have things to go look back on and remember, and to see His faithfulness and see what He's done and miracles He's done and things that He said and promises He's given. And so that was a big part of this journey for me, honestly, was it was going so fast, and so there were several weeks where I was like, is he really saying this? How is, like, what in the world? But I would, like, go back a few weeks, and I would be like, yes, he's absolutely saying this. And so, yeah, he's been speaking to us a lot through, he gave me this dream back in April and brought me to Song of Solomon 2, and it just talks about arising and running, like this invitation to run to higher places with him. It's time to arise and run and go to these higher places. And it just kind of began to, as Austin came on the table, I was like, well, I wonder what the elevation of Austin is. And it's higher than College Station. It's 1,000 versus like 300. And I was like, okay, feet, yeah. And above sea level, yes. And just little things like sitting on the hill, and we just felt like there was so much that he was speaking in that place. And so it was just really sweet to see that. And when he originally brought me to those verses, it was at the end of Shelter in Place. And in a lot of ways, I feel like he just gave it to me to, like, give away to a bunch of women in our body. I felt like it was like a commission for us as believers to, like, come out of Shelter in Place and, like, run to higher places with God. And I've learned over the years that, like, a lot of the times when God gives you something for you, it's also something that you can give away. And I feel like that's kind of what he was doing with that. But as we began to move towards Austin and this whole thing kind of started, he brought me back and he said, remember what I said about that dream and running to higher places? Like, that actually was about this. And so it just felt really sweet to see a full circle there, and one of the things that God was saying. And with our kids, he's just been so kind and so gracious to, like, prepare their hearts and just get them ready. And I feel like we were very intentional with when we brought them into the process, because they're very young, and so when they know, a lot of people will know. And so we also wanted them to be a part of it with us and not just us, like, telling them about it. And so God gave us some creative ways to talk with them about it, with different things that were happening, without actually telling them what was going on. And lots of songs, planting seeds, lots of songs we began singing, like Better Than, or there's a song called Go Anywhere by Ren Collective that we've had on repeat. So, we're just kind of, like, letting it run on their mind, like, we're going to go anywhere at all, as long as we're with you, Jesus. Like, that's what the song says. And so it was just sweet to see God preparing them. And 2 weeks before we told them, they've been doing these little prayer walks on our driveway because it gives them space to talk to Jesus and worship and pray, but also keeps their bodies moving. And so we've, yeah. And so Hudson came in. He's one of our 5-year-olds, and we were like, what did God say today? And he said, Jesus said we need to follow him wherever he tells us, even if we don't want to. And that was 2 weeks before we told them about Austin. And so we knew about what we were processing, and so we're like, thank you, God. And so it's been sweet to see. And when we finally told them, it was just a really sweet time. We all cried, like, and just we're grieving, because this is our home. I mean, I've never lived anywhere longer in my entire life than I've lived here in College Station, like, all growing up. And this is home, and y'all are our family. And but when Jesus invites you on a journey, it's just like, what else would you ever want to do but say yes? And so once we told them, like, after the initial, like, just, like, grieving what that meant, they all were just like, we want to follow Jesus with you. Like, that's, like, the resolve in their hearts, and like, we want to go where he's asking us to go. And they counted the cost, even in their, like, sweet little young hearts and minds. Like, they are saying yes, and they're going, and they're doing it with joy, and they're along for the adventure. And so I'm really proud of them and just really thankful for the ways that Jesus has just helped them along the way.
I heard, yeah, y'all can clap for her. That was amazing. So good. I heard, I don't even know who it was, honestly, but many years ago, some, sage, wise, like parent tell me, you want to, in any of these big decisions, like big life decisions, you want to involve your kids, not inform your kids, and like find ways to bring them into the journey of hearing God and being a part of making the decision with your family, because it just like creates this unity and this bond, and it really gives them ownership in the process. And so God just gave us so much grace that honestly we couldn't have made it up the way that it played out with them, and the ways in which we were able to just invite them into hearing God with us. And I'll just say this real quickly, but about a week and a half ago, after we'd gotten the job offer on a Wednesday, I was driving to Austin to go and accept the job in person. And we were sitting down at dinner the night before on Tuesday night, and right before we were sitting down to eat, I just felt the Lord kind of give me this idea to invite the kids into, one last time, just like asking Jesus if he was really calling us to go to Austin before Daddy goes and accepts the job. And so we sit down at dinner, and before we eat, I go, okay, kids, so you guys know the church in Austin has offered Daddy this job, and I'm planning to drive there tomorrow and to accept the job and to say yes, but only if every single one of you hear Jesus saying that this is what we're supposed to do. And so we're going to ask him right now. And when God put this idea in my heart, I was like, Lord, you got to pull through for me, man. I mean, we got 6, 5, 5, 3, and then an inaudible, 6-month-old. So he's just like, he smiles all the time. He's always yesing, And so we sit down and we're at the table and we just go, Jesus, are you calling us to go to Austin? And just waited, for a minute, and then I was like, all right, let's go. Hudson? And it was beautiful. We went around the table. I pointed at Hudson. He goes, yes, 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 yes. Daddy, I want to go with you tomorrow. It's like, come on, man. All right. And Caleb was sitting next to me, our almost 7-year-old, and he was just like so just reserved, like serious, like he could understand the weight of it. And he just kind of quietly was like, yeah, Daddy, he's saying yes. This is what he's asking us to do. And then came to Levi, our other 5-year-old, and he said, Daddy, Jesus, kind of similar to what Arlina shared from Hudson, Jesus is saying that even if we don't want to, we should follow him because he's good. And I'm like, my 5-year-old, like, oh my gosh. And then Holland said, enchiladas are 3. So I love enchiladas. Tex-Mex is my favorite food, so I took that as a word from the Lord. Let's go to Austin. Enchiladas. And somebody was just praying for me down here and said the whole enchilada, or maybe that, I don't know. Somebody said that this morning. Anyways, so it was really sweet to watch it play out with our kids. And then the next morning, before I got in the car to drive to Austin, they all surrounded me and prayed and blessed, gave me their blessing to lead our family to move. So,
love it. I love the enchilada. That is great. That word, give me a word for you too. So, I hopefully you guys are just picking up on, again, not only do they press into God, but they press into their kids, and they only got one kid that can, he's learning to read. And so they're little, but they still invited them into that, and that'll be forever enduring. How many of us wish actually we could go back in time when Dad actually said, hey, can I talk to you about this job I'm going to take across the country, just does wonders for building trust. And I think you guys have done a beautiful job in their young age right here in this pivotal, the biggest change in their life, period, up to date. And you've invited them in, you did it together as a family, and that's going to pay off huge dividends for them 30 years from now, which is awesome. So way to go on that. All right. We got to turn the corner, though, here. And so you got to hear kind of the journey, but just wanted to kind of, as we end our time here in a few minutes, just wanted you guys to share a little bit of the cost, because we all know following Jesus is not easy. If anyone tells you that, they're a liar. It's hard. Jesus even himself said, the way is narrow and hard that leads to life. And so Jesus' invitation to us to pick up our cross and follow him to the narrow way. It's not all fun. There's enjoyable moments. There's joy in the kingdom, absolutely, but it is costly and looks differently in different stages of life, right? But just maybe share just a little bit just on some of the costs for you guys and weighing this out and what this means moving forward. So,
yeah, we've kind of been the last few weeks. I feel like we're experiencing the cost day by day. You know, it's like just an onion or something. There's all these different layers, right? And they're just peeling back, and you never really know when you're gonna cut through one that like makes you cry. You know, like, and that's a pretty good metaphor, actually. So I hit an onion layer, outside of Lowe's a week ago, picking up mulch to mulch my yard because we're selling our house, and like this house that God, just miraculously gave our family a year ago. I mean, it's a dream. It's like our dream, it's incredible. And it was the culmination of like so much history with God, when we moved into this house last summer on our 10-year anniversary, and so I'm like sitting in Lowe's parking lot, just crying because I'm like, I'm about to sell this house, but just the whole weight of the whole thing, and so there's multiple layers to it. The language I think that we've kind of been using the last few weeks is that, there's counting the cost. We talk about counting the cost a lot, and then there's paying the cost, and so there's it seems like the big yes is like the hardest. Like, we're gonna move our whole family to another city. Like that's what we would call the big yes, and maybe that seems like the biggest one. But then there's the 1,000 like little yeses that actually come after it, that are where you really follow Jesus. It's like where you really pay the cost. And so I think the cost to us is in multiple forms, friendship, relationship. I mean, I wept through worship this morning just because I love this house. Like, I love the heart and the passion for Jesus in this place. I love Kaylin Taylor, and everything about just this family and the culture of loving Jesus that we've built here together, and I don't want to leave that. There's like nothing inside of me that wants to walk away from, what we experienced from 10 o'clock to 10:25 this morning, our kids have been going to an amazing school that that we adore and we trust. And, we were cleaning out the closet one day, and all the Oakwell uniforms came down, and it hit them like, oh, like we don't get to go back to Oakwell. And it was just a tear fest, just everybody just crying and grieving. And so, the cost is real, but he is so worth it. He's so worth it. And you do like cling to the promises. That first song we sang this morning, your promises never fail. You do cling to what he said, and this vision that he's invited you into, and you give him your yes day in and day out. And so, do you want to add anything to that, babe?
I feel like God is a God of good exchanges. Like, he gave himself for us, like the best exchange of all. And I feel like when you live life with him, it's just this constant exchange. And ultimately, he is our greatest exchange. Like, we get him. He is our gain above all else. Like, no matter what, like, he is our greatest treasure. And so when we lose it all, we still gain him forever. And that is our gain in Jesus. And we get to know him. And that's our greatest treasure. And I feel like he was just showing me, even with the house that we're leaving, it was a promise fulfilled. Like, many promises fulfilled were this home that we've been living in this last year for 2 years. It was the culmination of promises that were made 2 years before that was given to us. And but now he's we're giving one promise fulfilled in exchange for more promises. And so we just get to trust that, like, we're going to see more promises fulfilled because we've already seen it happen in so many other ways that, like, why would we not just trust him? He's so trustworthy. And so he is your gain. He's our gain always. And he died. It's just the gospel. Like, he died to keep you and me so that we get to keep him forever.
Amen. That'll preach. Amen. All right. Well, in just a moment, we're going to have the band come up in a few moments, and we're just going to worship Jesus, and we'll kind of take us into that. But just, I wanted to end, just you guys each just maybe just sharing one story of, just kind of what, to you guys, what captures the heart of this church and of Antioch and of the DNA of the kingdom? Just a story maybe just to share with us, just a reminder, because obviously we could sit here and do a multi-day interview of hearing stories. But we at least just want to kind of end. We don't want to end on the cost. The cost is real. But just want to end on you guys reflecting on maybe just a couple of stories that maybe capture the heart of this family.
Yeah, for sure. I mentioned at the beginning that it was about 9 years ago that we came to Antioch, and a little known fact, we actually had never attended a service here before I was actually a youth pastor. I was on staff at a different church, and we were having a little bit of a crisis, a breakthrough of faith, and we just, in great church, amazing people, but we just kind of began to realize that, like, man, we read the Bible and we see the vibrancy and the life of the New Testament church, and it just doesn't really, then we look at our church and it's like, something feels like it's kind of missing here. And we started to just feel stuck and kind of discouraged, but it was kind of all that we knew, and we really weren't sure if anything else like even existed, and like I said, amazing church, amazing people, but there had to be more, and we had been married like 2 years, and so we were just trying to figure things out, and then we started hanging out with Tyler and Ashley. They had moved here and had planted Antioch, and we were just continually just like drawn to just the life in them. They were excited about Jesus. There was like you would be refreshing just hanging around them, and there was this like vibrant faith that they carried. You would hang out with them and you would feel like, man, these guys actually believe like the New Testament church is real. And there was just something like, and so all that to say, I ended up quitting my job as a youth pastor at another church. We'd never even visited Antioch. We had just hung out with the Hardys, and we were like, this is what God's saying. That was like, up until this point, our biggest kind of like big yes, like, we feel like God is calling us to make this big shift. And so we jumped in, and because we were just hungry for more, we really were just hungry for more of Jesus. And I feel like one of the scriptures God highlighted this morning as I was praying was that verse in Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you will be satisfied." And I feel like what marks this church and what has marked us because of this community from day one is just a true hunger for more of God, a true hunger to know Jesus more, to surrender everything to him, and to follow him. And that has changed our lives over and over again over the last 9 years, is being around a tribe and a family that you just can't sit cozy for very long. Like even if you just, try to stagnate a little bit, maybe you'll get a couple of months, and then, somebody's going to rebuke you if in love, or God's going to just, get you in love, and you're just going to realize, what am I doing? There's more. Like I didn't, I'm not doing this lukewarm thing, and so I just love that about, and even just being here worshiping with you this morning, I'm like, oh my, Kaylin, did you like pick all my favorite songs just because you knew, like today you did probably, but, just always going for more, just an obsession with Jesus. and knowing him. And it's marked us forever. And I'll let you share, and then I'm going to say one last thing.
Yeah, I just think back to those early days, and when we were just friends with the Hardys, because they were starting this church, we were at another church, and we were just like a haven for one another, just friendship. And but we were experiencing like the living God that they knew and loved, and we were hungry for it. And I remember they invited us to Charity's birthday party. We didn't know Charity, but they were giving her, the church had rallied behind her to pay off her school debt. And it was like a lot of money, like $43,000. And they were like, come, we're going to do this. Y'all just come. And so we're just there like total strangers at her birthday party, helping hold the big giant check that says all the money. And like we got to see the church pay off this woman's debt and like set her free financially, and just like it was just like such a promise fulfilled in her life from God that he was going to provide, and he did. And we got to see it happen, and we got invited into it early on, and just seeing and tasting and just being a part of the faith to see something that looked impossible happen. And I feel like we've just seen that over and over again. And I feel like it really awakened something in me. I was like, I want to have faith to see mountains moved, because that's like a pretty big mountain. And I just saw it move. And so it really like woke something up in me. And that I feel like I'm like, show me a mountain, I'm going to see it move. Like that's where I'm like land now. And it was because of that day. And so I'm just so thankful for the hunger. I'm so thankful for the faith. And I'm just so thankful that Jesus is real and that he is true, and he's faithful and trustworthy, and he really does. Like everything that he has said and will say and is saying like will happen. Just like he is risen, just as he said, so will everything else he has said. It will come to pass. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. And so his words and his promises really are so trustworthy.
Come on. And just one last thing. And y'all know me, like I'm a talker, I'm a preacher. Like I've got a 15-point message of everything I love about this community. Seriously, like, and I mean, it would be a solid hour-and-a-half sermon, and you'd probably stay awake, you know, because like this family, this community, what Tyler and Ashley have cultivated here, the hunger for God, the faith, the community, like all 15 of them, all right? Like it is rich, and it is real, and it is unique, and it's powerful, and it's life-changing. I mean, I know you're here because you've tasted and you've experienced Jesus at work through his people, you know. But all of those things aside, like the number one thing that has changed us, you know, outside of just the presence of Jesus showing up, like the number one thing that has changed us and marked us forever has just been y'all's friendship and getting to be friends with, I mean, so many of y'all, whether it's, you know, we've known you for 6 months or a few years, or we go back, you know, 9 years to the beginning of this deal, you know, like that's the thing that, you know, made me weep this morning, like getting ready to come here, was the friendship. And that's the greatest cost of all, is the change that's going to happen in, you know, in relationships, because it always just does, you know. But that's the greatest thing for us to just say thank you. Like, y'all have loved us. Y'all have loved our family. Y'all have prayed for us. Y'all have warred and called on heaven when our twins were dying 5 years ago and we saw miracles. I mean, y'all have so much inheritance in our family. Y'all have given us prophetic words at Life Group and on Sunday mornings. You guys have encouraged us to be who God's made us to be, and you've given us space to walk in those things. And you've brought us snacks and treats and fun things late at night, and just showing up to be there when we were going through it, and so many things. There's not enough time. So just thank you for being our friends and for loving us. And you know, thankfully, it's Austin, and we're at hour 45. We just love you guys. We love you.
Yeah, amen. Well, we love you guys too. Here's where we're going to end. We're going to stand and worship Jesus. I think that's how they would want to end this interview.
I did get to pick this song.
Yeah, there we go. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to stand up, guys. And, hopefully what you guys heard in their story was this yes to Jesus, which was it wasn't just the last 8 weeks. They decided to start saying yes to Jesus. That started years ago. So I think for us this morning, how do you respond? This is not an atypical message or sermon, but what we want to do is we just want to position our own hearts, we worship, and just to say yes to Him, whatever that is, whatever He's put in front of you right now, whether it seems big or little, that each of us have a chance today and this week to say yes to Him again and to put Jesus at the center. Before we were having a kind of a pre-meeting this morning, someone just said, it's about putting Jesus at the center. We got to go through Him to actually make sure that we know wherever we're going that it's the right way. Right. And I think putting Him in the center again. So wherever you are, if it's a job thing, if it's a relationship thing, if there's an addiction in your life that you've been wrestling with, you're in that kind of back and forth state, man, I think we would all say that a yes to Jesus is the solution, and a yes to Him, that's the way we're meant and called to live life. Is just saying yes to Him over and over again. So that's what I want to do this morning and respond to Him. Yeah. One practical thing that we didn't mention is you're probably wondering, when are they leaving? Is this the official send-off? No, it's not. They're not being sent out today. We're communicating to you today. But the desires we're working out with Antioch Austin is for them to actually be there, start working in early October. So they're working on selling their house. They're working on closing up relationships here, transitioning. There's school stuff, a whole new city, you know what that's like. They're working that through, so be praying for them. And if you got encouragement for them, they love that. Just send a text or, hey, we're praying for you. We're believing God for you, whatever's happening. But they are on that journey of trying to get to Austin. And so he's going to be wrapping up his responsibilities here at this church so they can get focused on that to get prepared. So if you're wondering, that's kind of the time frame for them. So does it make sense? You guys ready to say yes to Jesus again? Yeah. Great.
Just say one thing. Don't wait for the big yes. 99.5% of life is like saying yes in the really small, faithful, and the little everyday things, And then every once in a decade, like you get to say the big yes, So I love that what Tyler's sharing. Like, don't wait for the big yes. Like, let's just start with the next yes, So.
Amen. So let's just pray with me as we jump into responding to the Lord. Just respond where you're at this morning. Jesus, we thank you. We love you. We trust you. We put you at the center again this morning. Lord, I thank you for the story and the example of Chris and Arlina and with their kids. I thank you, Lord, that there is a story for us to learn from, to actually model from, of pressing into you, saying yes to you in the unseen and in the seen, saying yes to you even when it hurts, even when it's costly. Jesus, we come to you this morning and we say you are worth it. You are worth our yes. You are worth our yes, because when we say yes, ultimately that means we are surrendering to your lordship and your leadership. So Jesus, again, I pray on behalf of all of us here in the room, anyone streaming, Lord, I just ask that you would cultivate the yes in our heart again, the daily yes. That's our prayer this morning, Lord. So whatever it is, you need to highlight something this morning, God. If you need to highlight an area in one of us and any of us, Lord, that just we've wanted to say yes, we haven't yet. Maybe it's been a maybe, but maybe this is the morning where Jesus just says, hey, I'm looking for that yes. Let us be a people to respond to you that way. Let's worship together.